Coming at you on today's Philadelphia Eagles. Now, 5 free agent targets for the Birds that could fit Vic Fangio's scheme after he was hired as Eagles defensive coordinator, taking over for Sean Desai and Matt Patricia. And what a disastrous 2023 season it was for this Philadelphia Eagles defense. The coordinator change did not help at all. Britton Covey even told that to us here on Eagles Now during that interview that we did in Las Vegas from Super Bowl 58 Radio Row. And you look at some of these defensive figures, it was bad. The Eagles were 31st in passing yards allowed per game, 252.7, 31st in total touchdowns given up at 35, 30th in third down conversion rate, meaning teams were able to convert on third downs 46% of the time. So this Eagles defense simply could not get off the field. That did no favors for this Eagles offense, which was also struggling. The Birds also finishing 29th in red zone efficiency, 65%. What that means is that when teams got inside the red area, 20-yard line to the goal line, they scored a touchdown in a sounding 65% of the time. Philadelphia falling really off the railways and takeaways, 27th in 2022 to just 18 total the entire 2023 campaign. And the Eagles were number 1 in sacks en route to making it to Super Bowl 57. They tallied 70 as a team. That was the most since the mid-1980s when the Chicago Bears had some of those fantastic defenses. That number dropped to just 43 this past year. So Vic Fangio has his work cut out for him, and it's not like the Eagles defense could get much worse. That's why I really like the hiring. You have one of the most respected defensive minds in the NFL who runs a multiple scheme that can confuse opposing offenses, but also just maximize some of the players on this Eagles roster on the defensive side of the ball. But as we look forward to 2024, could a couple of studs from this Eagles defense be moving on? Fletcher Cox, according to Reuben Frank, NBC Sports Philadelphia, he thinks it's a long shot that Cox is going to be back with the Philadelphia Eagles. And he's been with this team for more than a decade, a franchise pillar. He's going to go down as one of the best defensive linemen in the history of this organization, but he's still playing at a really high level. I doubt the Eagles are going to want to pay him top dollar, and they have to give some playing time to Jalen Carter, Milton Williams, and Jordan Davis. So where would Fletcher Cox fit into the equation? If he wants to extend his career, get another big payday, it might be outside of Philadelphia. And then Haason Reddick, we'll see what happens with him. He was terrific in 2022, 16 sacks, 4th in Defensive Player of the Year voting. And then in 2023, like everybody else on this Eagles defense, his production did plummet a little bit, down to 11 sacks. He's one of the best edge rushers in the game. And if he's going to demand on that new contract extension that he's looking to receive, as he's on the books for $15.5 million, non-guaranteed money, so he wants that long-term financial commitment from the Eagles or somebody else, I'm not sure if Howie Roseman, to a 29-year-old edge rusher, is going to be willing to pay up that much money for Haason Reddick. So we'll see if Cox and Reddick are back. If they're not, if they are, here are 5 free agent targets that make sense to play under Vic Fangio, the new Eagles defensive coordinator. Let's begin here with Chase Young. A lot of people are familiar with him because he spent the first couple of years in his NFL career with the Washington Commanders. Number 2 overall pick in the 2020 NFL Draft, Defensive Rookie of the Year coming out of Ohio State. Then he suffers that knee injury. And in the next 2 years, he played a combined 12 games. This year, though, between Washington and San Francisco, 19 games played, of course, including the playoff run for the Niners, in which they made it to the Super Bowl and lost to Kansas City. Chase Young, pretty productive player. 7.5 sacks all throughout the year. But what was weird, he played 9 games with the Niners, and that vaunted defensive line alongside Nick Bosa, former Eagle Javon Hargrave, Eric Armstead, yet Chase Young sometimes was not getting as much playing time as a player like Cleveland Ferrell, and the production somewhat mysterious, 2.5 sacks in those 9 games with San Francisco. In the Super Bowl, though, especially in that first half, I thought he was really good, very dominant and disruptive. 1 sack, 2 quarterback hits on Patrick Mahomes. His Pro Football Focus numbers, very good, though. So analytically, he checks out as a player who has a lot of upside and had a pretty good 2023 campaign. Overall Pro Football Focus grade of 74.4, pass rush grade of 75.8, run defense grade. This is supposed to be a strong suit of his game. Struggled a little bit, according to the PFF metrics, though, 60.8 there. But what you're looking for in an edge rusher who's physically built like Chase Young, take over the game and win some of those one-on-one matchups with your pure athleticism. Young at moments was able to do that. 48 hurries, 66 total pressures. Chase on Chase, my take on Chase. You see what I did there? He's only 24 years old. He has so much potential. When you look at him in shoulder pads and football gear, you're like, wow, this dude is a physical specimen. But what concerns me, the injury problems that he's had in his career, combined with the lack of effort issues. The word coming out of Washington, players were fed up in the locker room about his inconsistent effort. And then in the NFC Championship game against the Detroit Lions, there was a play on a Jahmyr Gibbs touchdown run, which put the Lions up a couple of scores where Chase Young was making no effort at trying to keep him out of the end zone. How does that happen in an NFC Championship game? And if it happens in Philadelphia, the Boo Birds are out. Make sure you subscribe to us here on Eagles Now, because whenever the Eagles make a move, we talk about it right here on the show. This is your go-to spot for not just the best offseason coverage on the Birds, year-round and daily shows right here on the Philadelphia Eagles. And with the NFL Combine coming up, we are going next week to Indianapolis. I will be there with free agency right after that. Then the NFL Draft. Our coverage is going to be spectacular. Lock us in today. Vic Fangio, free agent target number 2. Let's go to Eddie Jackson, safety, formerly of the Chicago Bears. He was released last week. We talked about him over the weekend, and that video did very well. A lot of people conflicted. Some people want him, some people don't. I'd say in reading the comments, a lot of people have sided with, don't sign Eddie Jackson. He's old. He's washed. But familiarity with Vic Fangio here. First team All-Pro and a Pro Bowler in 2018 when Fangio was the defensive coordinator for the Chicago Bears. That move for the Bears to cut Eddie Jackson saved Chicago $12.5 million. Some concerns here on top of the age, as he's 30 years old. He suffered a Liz Frank injury to his foot in 2022. That obviously cost him games 2 years ago. This past year, it cost him some games, but also he just didn't look to be the same player. Lacking some athletic juice, didn't have the same explosiveness. I will say this, though. The final month of the season, he showed some signs of being a solid safety in this league. You look at the overall numbers in those 12 games played, 37 tackles, 5 pass breakups, 1 interception, Pro Football Focus grade of 58.6. That's below league average. And a quarterback rating when targeted of 121.1. But when Fangio was this DC in 2018, Eddie Jackson was a first-team All-Pro player, arguably the best safety in the NFL that year. Big play threat, 2 touchdowns from that safety spot. So the ability to diagnose and read plays, 15 pass breakups as a safety, very good production there. 1 sack, 6 interceptions. So he really was an all-around playmaker at all 3 levels of the field, 2 tackles for loss. I think that Eddie Jackson can still be a starting safety in the National Football League. But is that what Philadelphia wants? Do they want a player who has some injury issues, who's aging, and has declining production to be their starting safety? Or do they want to go after a younger player? We're going to talk about a younger safety coming up here in just a few moments. But first, I love Prize Picks. Do you love Prize Picks? I hope that you do. And if you don't, you will if you go to prizepicks.com/CLNS and use the code CLNS. What is Prize Picks? Daily fantasy sports made easy. You pick 2 or more players. You choose more or less on their projected stats. I don't know about you. I love baseball. So let's go to some Prize Picks baseball selections. Austin Riley, more than 35.5 home runs. I like it. Freddie Freeman, more than 26.5 jacks. I love that as well. Freddie Freeman, more than 176.5 hits. I'm going all in on the more. Ronald Acuna, as that Braves team is spectacular on that roster, although shout out to the Philadelphia Phillies for knocking them off in the NLDS. Let's go, Phils. Ring the bell. More than 37.5 jacks there. And then Aaron Nola, more than 195.5 strikeouts. I like the more on that as he rebounds a little bit from an inconsistent 2023 after that big payday. Now, you can select football picks on Prize Picks, NBA, Major League Baseball, college basketball. You can combine picks as well. $100 deposit match. prizepicks.com/CLNS. Use the code CLNS. Andrew Van Ginkel, a career year with the Miami Dolphins in 2023 with Vic Fangio calling the plays as the Dolphins defensive coordinator under head coach Mike McDaniel. His numbers check out in a very impressive way, and he graded out in just really spectacular fashion with Miami this year. 69 total tackles, very nice, 6 sacks, 19 quarterback hits, and 53 pressures. This is a player who can blitz the quarterback. Vic Fangio is going to ask his edge rushers and outside linebackers to drop back in coverage, and it all checked out for Andrew Van Ginkel. Overall grade of 91.1, a run defense grade of 76.3, and a pass rush grade of 90.6. He was graded out to be one of the best edge rushers, outside linebackers in the National Football League. Now, again, in Vic Fangio's scheme, and this is why you have to wonder what's going to happen with Hassan Reddick, because I do like Reddick's ability to break out under Fangio, but I hate seeing Reddick drop back in coverage because that's not his strong suit. He's at his best when he's aggressive, pinning his ears back, getting aggressive and getting after the quarterback like Jonathan Gannon utilized him to be. But under Fangio, sometimes the outside backers / edge rushers will have to drop back in coverage. Nolan Smith did that a little bit at Georgia, and Vic Fangio is going to ask him to do the same. So if you trade Reddick here, this is a cheaper replacement for him, although with what he did in 2023, Van Ginkel might see some decent coin. Josey Jewell, another player who has familiarity with Vic Fangio because he played under him when Fangio was the head coach with the Denver Broncos. 2019 to 2021 was when Fangio was the head man in the Mile High City. Jewell, 6 seasons total in Denver where he's racked up 453 tackles, 9 sacks, and 7 fumble recoveries. He's worn the green dot in recent seasons. We know that Philadelphia needs to get better, and they need to upgrade at the linebacker spot. Could they do it with Josey Jewell, who kind of fits the prototype for Howie Roseman? He's not going to break the bank. Vic Fangio knows how to utilize him, has familiarity with the player, and Josey Jewell, while he's not going to get a rich contract, has been a pretty productive player throughout his career. In 2023, overall PFF grade of 67.2. Pass rush grade, 71.3. Coverage grade, not bad. In the green at 64.2. Run defense grade at 63.1. I'm going to say it now. I've said it a lot before. I'm going to continue to harp on it. Howie Roseman was 32nd going into 2023 in team spending at safety, 31st at linebacker. What happened with Philadelphia this year? They were awful in the middle of the field and at safety. It's time to address those areas of weakness, and it's time to pay up and invest a little bit more. That brings us to the safety spot. If you're going to pick between 2 safeties on this list, Eddie Jackson or Kamren Curl, who played last year with Washington, I'm going with Curl. What's intriguing about him, not yet 25 years old. He will be 25 in March. So a young player who I think is starting to round into his potential. He's a hard hitter, really physical, not afraid to put his hat on the ball carrier. And I like that. Guy coming across the middle, he's going to let you know that's his real estate. Versatile player who Vic Fangio can use in different areas of the field. And I think Fangio would really like coaching him and utilizing him inside his scheme because he's a smart and cerebral player as well. Cam Curl isn't going to get a lot of the buzz that an Antoine Winfield will get, rightfully so. Antoine Winfield is probably going to be a top 5, top 10 highest paid safety when everything is said and done this offseason. But for Howie Roseman, who doesn't like to invest all that much money in linebacker safety, These are cost-efficient, realistic options for this front office and for this coaching staff to really utilize and bring the best out of them. And for Kamren Curl, this is a player who you could get at a pretty solid rate, and I think he's really underrated, but you sign him to a multi-year deal, him and Reed Blankenship, they could be your answers at an affordable rate at the safety spot for the next few years. His numbers, according to Pro Football Focus in 2023, weren't all that good. Overall grade of 66.6, that's still in the green. Run defense grade of 63.1. Coverage grade not bad at 68. But keep in mind that the Commanders fired their defensive coordinator, Jack Del Rio. Some people say I look like him because of my eyes. And that defense for Washington, an unmitigated disaster. So just like Philadelphia, where it's hard to gauge which players played well, which players played poorly, same could be said in Washington because the scheme was so bad and the defense was a mess. So we talked about 5 players who fit Vic Fangio's scheme, who could all be had in free agency realistically for Philadelphia. Which of these 5 players do you like the most? Drop me a name down below in the comments section as you venture down there. Don't forget to subscribe. And as always, all day, every day, baby, go Birds.